can't come to the phone right now. I'm listening to Party Talk Podcast.
Welcome to the Party Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Cooper Keimig, back with Chris Keimig. Today's episode will be Week 10 of fantasy football with a surprise midway through. All right, let's go ahead and get started with our last week's predictions. So last week's predictions on the waiver wire. Who was your waiver wire pickup, Chris?
Well, I had Cam Akers of the Vikings. Madison was really struggling again, and I think Akers was actually outperforming him. And he was until he tore his Achilles. So he's done for the year. I heard that the Pro Football Weekly, their grades, he was the number 2 player on the Vikings on offense. So he was I think it was going to be him. It was going to be his show, but that ACL, he's gone. So no need to hang on to him. I already cut him in a couple of leagues of mine.
Yeah, me too.
And then Jahan Dotson, he was 4 catches for 69 yards and a touchdown, 16.9 PPR points. He also led his team in targets with 8. So he's a pretty good keeper, I think, right now.
Yep. And then one of mine was David Njoku. He finished with 12.6 PPR points out of a tight end. That's pretty good. He had 4 catches on 6 targets, only 26 yards, and he did have a touchdown. My other pickup was Kyler Murray. He didn't end up starting, which I didn't expect him to, but it's official. He's starting this week. It's the Kyler Murray show, and James Conner should be back as well. So hopefully you guys picked him up. He might still be out there. I know he's out there in one of my leagues, and I just picked him up right before the episode started. So I look to start.
It's good because you needed a quarterback in that league, didn't you?
Yeah, because I lost I lost I lost Kirk Cousins. Yeah. Well, the thing that pissed me off the other day is in our league, you have it so you can only pick up 2 quarterbacks. And I can't remember.
Was that our 14? That's our 14 team. Yeah, it's kind of.
So I had to drop Foreman just to pick up a quarterback this week.
Yeah, Foreman's probably done with.
All right, and then we'll take a look at our start of the weeks last week. I had Saquon Barkley. He finished with 14.3 PPR points. He had 16 rushes for 90 yards, 3 catches for 23 receiving. He did all this without Daniel Jones, who is out for the year. And the Raiders absolutely blew out the Giants. So if it was a closer game, I think Barkley would have done better, but 14.3 points ain't bad. My sleeper last week was Kareem Hunt. He finished with 9.8 PPR points. He had 15 rushes for 38 yards and a touchdown. He probably would have saw more work, but the Browns blew out the Cardinals 27-0. Who was your start of the week?
I had Tyreek Hill. He was 8 for 62. Most players, that would have been a pretty good week, but not for Tyreek. It was like his second worst game of the year. So
that fumble hurt him too. Oh man.
Yeah, I thought for sure. We both thought 150 plus, couple touchdowns, but nope.
Yeah, and we'll take a look at our bets last week. My bet did win. I believe I'm 2-0 again. I had a Thursday night bet. It was DeAndre Hopkins, 25 plus yards. Deontay Johnson, 4 catches. Derrick Henry, 40 yards, and Najee Harris, 25 yards. That did end up hitting and looked to go 3-0 this week. What was your bets, Chris?
I was going all in on the Chiefs. I picked Hill for a touchdown. Nope. Waddle for a touchdown. Nope. Kelsey for a touchdown. Nope. Taylor was gone there, so that was a double loser. And Mostert was the only one that covered. So you went parlay, you lost. If you bet Mostert singly with all those other ones, you probably broke even. So not a good week.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and get started into Week 10 predictions with a special guest, former fantasy analyst and Washington Commanders superfan and fantasy doctor caller, Jaden Noriega. How are you today, Jaden?
Hey there, Cooper. Yeah, I just kind of ran the film back on my Dr. Fancy call the other week. I heeded the advice, and I'm feeling good. I'm in a better spot in the fantasy league, so I'm just feeling good today, man. We had a good week in fantasy this week, so I'm just ready to get into it.
Have you decided to turn the tank around, or you don't know what to do yet?
This week's gonna be very telling.
Yeah.
I kind of want to commit to the tank. I kind of want to make a run for it. I mean, I'm not that far of a playoff spot, to be honest. My team, I did just put up the most points in the league this previous week. I got some bright spots on the team. This week will be a very telling week, as I said.
Yeah.
After this week, I will know if I'm tanking officially or if I'm gonna go ahead and make a run for it. Got a lot of picks I could deal away, so we're gonna see what happens.
We play this week, and if I lose,
Yeah,
if I lose, I think I'm trading Kelsey and probably maybe even Tyreek.
Well, you're not in a much better position than I am for all the slack I get. You're not in a much better position than I am. So we'll see this week. If I lose to you, then I'm calling it officially. I'm tanking. You don't have Kelsey either this week or Tyreek.
Yep.
Yeah, if I lose this week, the season's over. I'm tanking officially.
We'll have to see. All right, so we'll start off this week's week 10 with our waiver wire pickups. Who you got, Chris?
I got like 3 of them. I think there's a pretty good week. There's some guys out there just kind of sitting there waiting for somebody to grab them. If you need a quarterback, got Josh Dobbs of the Vikings. Never took a snap all week. Never threw a wide receiver all week either, because they didn't plan on playing him. But ended up with 25 fantasy points in just about 3 quarters. He's only 16% rostered before last night's waivers went through. I think he's probably up to 30 now. You're looking for a running back, Keaton Mitchell. Who? I mean, he had done nothing all year. He was on inactive last week, but he ended up getting in the game, had 9 carries for 138 yards and a touchdown. I didn't watch the game, but the Ravens do love to run the ball, so there might be room for him and Gus in there, but we'll see how this second week goes. And then if you're looking for a wide receiver, he's probably taken, but Tank Dell. Speaking of tanking out there, he's your number 1 wide receiver of the week, 29.6 PPR points. He's owned about 50% of the leagues before last night's waivers hit, so I bet he's about up to 85. He was 6 for 114 with 11 targets and 2 big touchdowns.
Yep, those are some good calls right there. I only got 1 this week. Will Levis. He's only rostered in 38.8% of leagues. He's coming off a mini bye after playing on Thursday night 2 weeks ago. He looked very solid just watching that game. He didn't have a lot of fantasy points, but he looked pretty good up until that last drive. But he's got a great matchup this week against the Buccaneers, defense who gives up the 4th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. Rookie CJ Stroud just had an amazing fantasy week with 42 points against them. I think Will Levis should have a good week this week. Who you got as a waiver wire pickup, Jaden?
So for my waiver wire pickup, I got Taysom Hill. So I know over years, he's been kind of, iffy. He has a big game here and there, and then he's kind of inconsistent. But the Saints have really been involved in the offense a lot the last few weeks here. And there's not many tight end options around the league. You got Kelsey, who's only good with Taylor Swift is in attendance. You got Kyle Pitts going out throwing duds up every week. Jonnu Smith is tight end 1. You can go look for him. But in all seriousness, I think I like Taysom Hill. You got to think he has a rushing upside that other tight end has. He can pass for a touchdown, and you get all these points in the tight end position on your fantasy team. In the last 3 weeks, he's put up good weeks. So yeah, I mean he's rostered. He's only rostered in, I believe, 50 and this is after yesterday's waiver transactions. He's only rostered in 54% of the ESPN leagues. So if he's available, I'd definitely pick him up if you're kind of tight at tight end. So
yeah, I mean,
I picked him up in 1 league, and I just feel icky about doing it.
I know. Yeah, it is kind of it's an interesting spot to be in. But like I said, he's been in I feel the reason he was available in so many of these because people feel the way that you feel, and but it's been 3 weeks in a row now. I feel pretty confident about him, especially when you got Kyle Pitts in 3 leagues like I do. I mean, I'd gladly take a Taysom Hill.
It's just it's so weird to think about. Like whenever they get to the goal line, he's gonna score. You see him
Yeah.
back there. They run that QB blast. I don't know how nobody stops him, but
He can pass
he's
it.
the
He can
best
pass it.
QB
He can,
blast player I've ever
yeah.
seen. Like he's
He
better
can
than
pass
Cam
it,
Newton.
run it, like anything. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So he's got a lot of touchdown upside, a lot of rushing upside, and even passing. So he's a very good tight end play, especially like I said, not that many serviceable tight ends around the league. And Goddard just went down as well. So if you're looking for somebody to replace Goddard, it's a good pickup right there.
All right, let's take a look at our starts of the week. You want to go ahead and start off, Jaden?
Yeah, for my start of the week, I got CeeDee Lamb. I mean, he's been the last 2 weeks. He's just produced like he did, like we seen him do constantly last year. Dallas has been looking to get him more involved. He's Dak's favorite target, and they're playing a struggling New York Giants secondary, and the Giants just look terrible this year. So I'd say the only thing I'm not even really worried about it. I was gonna say they're probably gonna blow the Giants out, but even with that, he still has plenty of time before that happens to rack up plenty of fantasy points. And yeah, I'm very confident starting him. I do have him in one of my leagues, and I'm glad to have him.
All right, to add on to that, Chris, who's your start of the week?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick on the Giants too. They're pretty sad. If you play in a IDP league,
Yep.
Micah Parsons go with the Dallas Cowboys defense against the Giants. They gave up 8 sacks to the Raiders, and Max Crosby had 3. So I can see Parsons doing the same.
Yeah, he's not my start of the week, but just kind of add on for those in the IDP league. I know Jaden's got him. Max Crosby, he faces the Jets this week. I know they lost a couple linemen. And the Jets offense is so bad. He should have like 5 sacks this week, Max Crosby.
Yeah.
But my start of the week, it's gonna be Bijan Robinson. You're hearing a lot over Twitter, about Arthur Smith. He's not playing him. I don't know what's going on. If you think about it, he's been somewhat of a disappointment, but it's not Bijan's fault. He looks amazing out there. You got Cordero Patterson, who's almost twice Bijan's age, who, let me remind you, is one of the best running back prospects in the last maybe 10 years.
Vikings legend.
He's getting touches over Bijan while Bijan's on the sideline. Anyways, Bijan's got a great matchup against the Cardinals defense, who gives up the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs. It's time to unleash Bijan, or else Arthur Smith will lose his job.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look.
I mean, just that before we move on, sorry about that, but just to add on to some of the stuff that's said there. I'm glad you brought up Max Crosby. He's an absolute, even aside from I love him from my fantasy team. He is, as I told Dr. France the other day, is my best player in my fantasy team on my sleeper league. So but I was glad he's having like a crazy year, like 9.5 sacks, like 8 games. Like he is like crazy good. Is ridiculous. And also, yeah, Arthur Smith and the Falcons drafting the highest overall tight end and not using them, and then drafting Bijan and doing what they're doing now. I know we got a friend, an Atlanta Falcons fan. I've been very frustrated. And I know he's very upset about what's going on over there in ATL. So hopefully they get that figured out.
Yeah, it's a tough scene. I did draft a lot of Falcons this year and kind of regretting it.
Drake London hasn't looked that bad. Just last little side note there. Drake London has been
I think
solid.
He practiced this week too, so hopefully he's back.
Yeah, he's still got that questionable. He's still carrying that questionable status. But if he goes, he's always he's been a pretty good piece in fantasy this year.
Yeah. Well, we'll go with the pit of the week. I think it's only fitting after talking about Arthur Smith. Who is your pit of the week, Chris? It might be a little different than what my
Well, he started off the year great. That's why my fantasy teams were doing so well. But the last 3-4 weeks, man, this guy's in that pit and he ain't getting out thanks to Arthur. Bijan Robinson, 11 carries for 51 yards. I mean, that's not bad. But for God's sakes, he's in the red zone. Give him the damn ball. I mean, only 11 carries. That's ridiculous. 5.9 fantasy points because he's not going to catch any passes yet. Splitting the carries with Algier. Then you throw in Cordell Patterson.
Jonnu Smith, sweep. Run him outside.
Jonnu Smith getting carries in the red zone.
I don't know what to do. I mean, I keep starting them because I have to, but It's not good for a number one draft pick. Was he 8th overall? That's just
About
crazy.
there, yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Well, I'll be honest with everybody listening to the podcast. About week 3, I made a trade. I was desperate. Saquon Barkley got hurt. I had no other running backs. I traded Tyreek Hill for Bijan. That was the worst move I've ever made. But the only reason
Very
I did it
questionable.
because I had Chris Olave, T. Higgins, Puka Nakua, Drake London, and Cortland Sutton. So I had
The Dynasty League?
no. This was a regular league,
Oh,
and I didn't have any other running backs, so I had to make a move. It's not working out.
I don't even know what I would call that trade. Not you. Oh, you should have consulted a Dr. Fantasy before
yes,
making that one.
that's true.
That's just not. Yeah.
I had to make a move, man. But the only reason I did it is it's an 8-man league, so you gotta make some questionable moves there if you want to win.
I understand
It
it.
didn't work out for me. All right, who is your pit of the week, Jaden?
My pit of the week, and I'm sad to say this because he has been providing for me recently in fantasy, but it is Gus Edwards. Sadly, he plays they're playing a Cleveland defense that I just looked outstanding this year. They've been a top 3 defense I believe in the league.
Yeah,
Been very good in defense. Keaton Mitchell also looked really good, even though it was. I don't know. It's kind of hard to judge with him because I feel like it was kind of like garbage time when he did it. But I mean, when you look that good, I feel like regardless, you're gonna be involved in the offense a little bit more. So I get and the Ravens, they have a history with their running backs of just spreading the ball around between their backfield. So with all the factors mentioned, like the Cleveland defense and then just the Ravens system, and he has kind of been somewhat touchdown dependent. Like last week, he was very touchdown dependent. He only had a good week because he got in the end zone twice, and like he can maintain that with how good the Ravens offense has been. But I'm just kind of iffy about him, so he's gonna be my pit of the week. I see him going low in fantasy this week.
yeah. Especially, I just want to add on to that, especially with Keaton Mitchell coming into the equation. I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
people who were high on him. One of the main podcasts I listen to, CBS Sports, they were telling me to draft him in the offseason. Like that's how high they were on him.
Yeah,
And then Gus Edwards, he doesn't catch passes. He had the 80-yard
I was gonna
catch
say.
one of those days, and that's like the only time he ever catches a pass.
Yeah,
It's a rare sight to see.
his receiving upside is definitely not there. Like I said, very touchdown dependent, and with Keaton Mitchell looking like how he did last week, regardless when it happened, they're definitely gonna get him some more touches. So I'm kind of iffy on Gus Edwards.
My pit of the week got George Pickens. Over the last 2 weeks, he's got 3 catches, only 21 yards and a touchdown. Deontay Johnson is back and he's dominating targets, yards, and catches. The Steelers' offense, it's below average, and I'm not sure if I can feel confident about starting Pickens until further notice. I don't want to play into narratives, but I don't know if you saw the video. George Pickens did not celebrate with the team after Deontay scored his touchdown. For the first one in like 2 years, he was pouting over on the sideline. I could see him requesting a trade next year at this point. He doesn't seem like a team player. I just can't. I don't feel confident starting him at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and that can we just before that's those offenses just fire Canada. I'm all with it. Fire Canada. I'm not even a Steelers fan. Just get him out of there. It's hard to watch. George Pickens is like, I'm not gonna lie, he's one of the most talented receivers I've seen in a long time. Like his hands are insane. His toe taps are ridiculous. Well, he has kind of, but he also has the same ones where he just messes up toe tap. But anyway, he's looked good, like very good. He's not happy. You've seen him post on his Instagram. You've seen the video on the sideline. He's unhappy. They love Deontay Johnson. Apparently, I don't know what happened on that time Deontay Johnson was injured, but they love him. So ever since he's come back, like you said, he's been taking all the targets. And just while we're on top of the Steelers, the fact they're 5-3, I don't understand at all. That they've looked like one of the most fraudulent 5-3 teams, and especially in that division because that division is so tight, and how good it's been this year. I don't know. But yeah, Pittsburgh, I don't have any confidence in them going forward, especially not any of their offensive weapons except for maybe Deontay Johnson.
Yeah. For those who are tuning in, the Pit of the Week segment is just players that we can't trust right now. Doesn't mean that, this is permanent. And if you look at the history of our Pits of the Week, they usually end up going off that same week we talk about them. Think of it as a squeaky wheel type of deal. So just be careful starting them, but there's a history right after we talk about them, they go off. All right, let's take a look at our sleeper of the week. You want to start, Jaden?
Yeah. So for my sleeper of the week, it's a somewhat sleeper, but I'll just touch on him because I feel like he hasn't gotten the most love this year. But it's Chris Olave. They're playing. Sorry about this, Cooper, but they're playing Minnesota. The secondary just looked below average, we'll say. They've given up a lot of points to receivers. And Olave, he's had a solid year. He hasn't had a bad year by any means. He's wide receiver 19 in ESPN full PPR leagues. And he's looked good at times, but he also had weeks where he just hasn't performed. He has, I believe, 5 weeks with over 10 targets. And there's another 2 weeks where he had like 9 and 8. But he's yet to have over 20 points in a week this year. So I could definitely see him getting a lot of targets this week and having a big week and breaking that 20-point mark for the first time.
Yeah. I'll add on to that real quick. Whenever the Saints offense faces a team who blitzes like a lot, and the Vikings they blitz the most in the league by like it's crazy. We blitz like I think 60% of the time. It's insane. Chris Olave is the most targeted player on that Saints offense. He almost has a 30% target share against the blitz, so he should.
So yeah, like I mean, and I don't think you're gonna like see anybody who has Chris Olave and has him on the bench unless they're just stacked a receiver. But he hasn't got a lot of love this year. Like I said, he hasn't broke that 20-point mark. He's been kind of just average the whole year. So I could definitely see him like taking off this week and having a really big week. So kind of a somewhat sleeper. Like I said, it's not somebody that somebody's gonna look at and be like, like he's starting in a lot of people's leagues. But I think I can see him having a big week.
Yeah. He might be someone you might want to add in our next segment that we do. Who's your sleeper of the week, Chris?
I'm gonna go Josh Dobbs of the Vikings. He's only 30% roster. Imagine if he knew where the players were gonna go on their routes. He was just calling plays and he had no idea where they're going.
Imagine if he knew the players' names he was playing.
No, he didn't know the name, or he didn't know nothing.
He
Kevin
had to teach him
O'Connell,
the
I heard this
cadence.
today. Kevin O'Connell, their head coach, was telling them he's going to go left, he's going to take right, he's going to goalpost, and he basically before every play he told them where everybody was going, and he just stood back there and okay, and just if they weren't there, he just took off running. So if he can get half the plays down, he's going to score some points. Plus, with his running ability, maybe that helped him last game. He didn't know where everyone was going. He just took off running. He looked phenomenal. So if you're looking for a quarterback, a sleeper, Saints defense is pretty good, but pick up Josh Dobbs if you need somebody.
Forgot the most important part. Justin Jefferson might be back.
Nah.
He practiced today.
Yeah, he's gonna.
I doubt we'll see him this week.
Yeah, I'd wait another week.
Never know.
Maybe week 11. Maybe.
Yeah. All right. My sleeper of the week is going to be JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's got a great matchup against, I'm sorry, Jen, the Washington Commanders defense, who gives up the third most PPR points to wide receivers. He's only 57% rostered in ESPN leagues right now. He's had 3 straight weeks of 12 plus PPR points. Not to mention, he has one of the best fantasy playoff schedules available. I'd look to start JSN this week against the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, I would say on JSN, he said like I was like 3 weeks in a row he's had like 12 plus points, and I thought that 1 week is like they didn't have DK, so I'm like, he's kind of stepping up. But even since DK came back, he's put up some like pretty decent performances. So I was definitely looking at him too for my sleeper pick of the week. He's definitely been looking like not a bad addition to some teams.
Yeah. All right. So before we get into our last segment, let's take a look at our bets of the week. What you got, Jaden?
Bet of the week. So I'm just gonna roll with this because I feel like every week I feel like it's gonna end and never does. I'm just gonna go ahead and start this with CMC anytime touchdown. It feels like it's never ending. He's in there every week, so let's go ahead and throw that on there. It almost feels like a lot. It's weird how much he scores. Like it's
He didn't score
ridiculous.
last week.
Yeah,
Because he didn't play.
but he didn't play, so that adds into that. But and then I also have the Falcons -1.5. The Raiders, the new look Raiders, new and improved Raiders. Even though Devontae Adams has been very disappointing on my fantasy team, I have them +1.5, and I also have the Bills -7.5.
All right. What do you got, Chris, for your bet of the week?
Well, I'm going to bet on this Thursday's game because that's the only way I'm going to watch that game. That's pretty sad, putting that on a Thursday, the Bears and Carolina. So I'm going to go with the DJ Moore revenge game, anytime touchdown and over 52.5 yards. That doesn't seem like very many.
Yeah, that is
playing Carolina. That seems kind of small.
Yeah.
And gotta go with my wife's favorite, so she'll let me watch the game. She loves Adam Thielen. So we're gonna go 69.5 yards on that. It's either that or the receptions. Receptions are 6.5, so whatever you like there. And a touchdown, $10 to win 170. So let's go, baby.
A few wide receiver ones there that could definitely have hopefully make the game somewhat entertaining because the primetime games have just been absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound very good, but this is a must. Like, if the Bears are going to win a game, this is a must win because they have the Panthers pick, so they want the Panthers to lose. So, I mean, it's something.
If they lose, then it's kind of the same thing. Like they're in a position where them or the Panthers could have the #1 pick. So
yeah,
I don't know. They're looking good for the draft.
Fields isn't going to play, so we might have a 0-0 tie.
Yeah, Fields isn't playing, which Dr. Fantasy knows this isn't good for my fantasy team at all. Yeah. Probably gonna make a little waiver pickup.
Yeah. All right. I have the most boring bet of the week. It's a 5-leg parlay. It is going to get us plus money at 104 odds. I got 5 alternate spreads of teams who I think will win anyways. Got 49ers alternate plus 7.5. Vikings alternate 10.5. Ravens alternate 7.5. Bills alternate 2.5. And then the Seahawks alternate 6.5. The lowest odds on this are the Vikings. I can't see them getting beat by 11 points anyways. So it's boring, but I got to keep the streak going 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd be careful with that Seahawks pick, man. I mean, I don't know, man. Washington, we have a
I think it'll be a shootout.
We got a history of being just randomly good. Sam Howell could throw for 400 yards and have 4 touchdowns, or he could just throw 3 picks and 200 yards.
Sam Howell has looked pretty good this year.
Yeah, he's been all right for sure. But
by randomly good, that's what, every 5 years?
Every 5 weeks.
All right.
Every 5 weeks.
So our last segment, me and Chris, we both drafted DraftKings DFS teams. I did the afternoon games, 3 p.m. and on. My QB is Geno Smith, Bijan. I got Brian Robinson, Marquise Brown with Kyler Murray back, Calvin Ridley, Amon-Ra, Dalton Schultz, Najee Harris, and I don't remember who I had I think I had Saints defense. Let me hear your team, Chris.
My early picks, the early games.
Do the 3 p.m. games, and I'll have Jaden see which one he likes better.
Okay. My 3 o'clock game. I'm not sure how you pick your teams. When I do it, I like to do a noon slot, and then I do the late games. That way I got some action going, even if I'm not watching somebody. But first thing I look at is the over-unders. Whoever has the most highest point total, I kind of lean that way. Not all the times, but that's something I lean for. And then do you like stacking your quarterback with a receiver or two, or how do you do that?
It depends on the slate, I guess. Typically, I'm not too focused on quarterback, but I mean, if it's there for the right price, I wouldn't mind stacking them together.
Okay, I usually go with the stack, but I went with Dak Prescott as my quarterback, $6,700. They're playing the Giants, so I can see some touchdowns there. The problem is he might only play 3 quarters. That's the one thing that kind of worries me. Gibbs are the Lions running back. I'm not sure if Montgomery's coming back. He's supposed to be coming back, but if he's not, Gibbs would be a good pick there. With Antonio Gibson as my other running back at 4,600. I think he's been catching a lot of passes lately, so I'm gonna lean that way.
Great pick.
Jahan Dotson, he's been starting to peak a little bit. He's at 5,000. I'm gonna stack Prescott with CD Lamb. I've been watching him lately. I went against him 1 week and I said, "Holy cow, he's faster than I thought." So CD Lamb and the Prescott, and then I got the Cowboys defense at the end of that. I can see a lot of turnovers with that quarterback for the Giants. Then I got Smith and Jigba in there, Jonnu Smith and Bijan as my flex.
All right, I like those. Jaden, will you be joining us next week, perhaps? Love to have you back.
Yeah, I'd love to be back, man. I appreciate you guys having me on here. If I have the time, I'd definitely love to join next week. Come back.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Party Talk Podcast. Catch you next time.